Joining us now on Chamber Amplified, Rod Walton, who I can't associate with a business now because he's retired, and now his first ever appearance here on Chamber Amplified. Rod, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Doug. How are you doing today?
Good. I'm glad to have you on here. I can't believe we actually haven't had you on the podcast before, but I'm glad we've got you now.
Well, it's nothing like the president, especially when it's 90 and sunny and hot out in the middle of July. So hopefully you're staying cool today, Doug.
We'll stay inside and let the air conditioning do. I'm trying to. I'm working on it. But you know me, I'm always cool. Just like you, Rob. So
Absolutely.
let's get for people who are listening or watching and may not be familiar with you, the few and far between, let's get them familiar with your career here in Findlay, how you got started and where you ended up before you hung it up earlier this year.
Well, it all started when we moved to Findlay back in 1983. And actually, my wife already had a job at Marathon, the oil company at the time. And after we got married, I was one of those new grooms that didn't have a job yet. So I actually ended up moving to Findlay with her. And long story short, I started a opportunity with a Diamond Savings Loan back on September 1st of 1983. And that led to a almost 44-year career in banking. Just recently retired on April 1st from what started out to be First Federal Savings Loan to First Federal Bank to Premier Bank and ended up with West Banco. So it's been a long and great banking career in this community, and one that I've always cherished and really relished and had a great time in carrying out the missions with all the banks that I worked for in my career.
So over the course of that, let's just kind of start from the beginning. Certainly, banking is an industry where business relationships are very important. And here's a secret we'll get out of the bag right away is business relationships are important in every industry, certainly banking. But as you are new to town and working to develop those relationships, what are some of the things that you did then? And do you think is that still practical advice in 2026?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt about that, Doug. I mean, honestly, with the things that I developed, especially a skill set to develop client relationships, it certainly, in my opinion, really hasn't changed much from 1983 to 2026. Now, don't get me wrong, things have certainly changed in the industry and how we approach things, especially, with the advent of, all of the social media
Mhm.
platforms was with LinkedIn and Facebook and now the advent of AI and everything else that goes along with that. But, certainly, it's really basic stuff. I mean, and I had great opportunities, got introduced to great folks, certainly the chamber. My involvement with that from day one in this community really led to a lot of those opportunities. And it really starts with networking and really getting in front of the right people and knowing who those right connections are. And I really think that's one of the biggest things that led to success in my career is really just those opportunities that of all those folks that I got to know over the years. And certainly, if you take care of your clients and you get to know your clients, that usually leads to a referral or
Mhm.
two or three. And it's just doing things the right way, Doug. I mean, I've always felt from day one, if you it's the old golden rule, if you treat people, you'll be treated just like that. And it just creates many opportunities and opens new doors. So it's really just it's the connectivity piece that I have found to be probably most helpful in my career journey over these many years.
You mentioned networking, and I think a lot of times people have maybe a negative connotation over there. Oh, I'm gonna go to this event. I got to get business cards. I got to talk about my business, and there's an aspect of that. But I think you would agree that networking takes place sort of outside of those things. And one area where that I think you're particularly proud of. You've been involved in a lot of things in the community, whether it's service organizations or serving on boards, doing things that you care about, but in turn also serve as networking, where you're not even really talking about what you do for a living. You're just out meeting people.
That's absolutely correct, and it's those introductions that lead to the opportunities to have those further discussions. I mean, very rarely when obviously when you meet somebody new, that usually the opening line is obviously what's your name and where do you work or what do you
Mhm.
do, and but I never dwelt on what I did or the position I had at the bank. I mean, it's always developing that rapport, and as I think back to how those relationships evolve. I mean, first and foremost, I think it's building trust and credibility. You don't get very far on that first contact, just like on the first date. Now, you might have, Doug, knowing how suave and debonair you were back in your day, but um, normally speaking, you don't get far on that first date and first contact. So you've got to build those relationships. You've got to build that credibility, um, because if people don't believe in you and trust in you, that relationship's not going to go any further. And we've all seen and all developed, outside sales calls that it's all sales, sales, sales. They don't get to know you. And again, in my opinion, in the banking industry, that's not the approach to take. As I think back to banking days, we all have the same commodity. We all have um, deposit rates and we have lending rates. And yes, there might be somebody out there trying to buy the business being the lowest or best rate in town, but that's not how you get a long-term sustained business model. Again, it's building those connections and relationships and working those over time. You mentioned networking events. That was one of my favorite parts of my job. Getting out, whatever event it might have been. But you one thing I would say is don't lose sight of the how valuable those sessions and opportunities can be, and make the best use of your time at those events, and don't forget to follow up. I mean, how many
Mhm.
times have you might have been handed a business card and you put it in your pocket and you find it a month later. um, you know take the time for those connections that might make sense. Not every single one is probably going to make sense, but file that away, pull it out from time to time, add it to a prospect or COI list, and don't forget about it. I think that's one of the things that people do, or maybe don't do correctly, is they'll create what I'll refer to as a top 10 list
Right.
of clients or relationships you want to build upon or expand upon. And the worst thing you can do is start that, put that list together first of the year, and then you forget about it the rest of the year.
It's something you have to be actively working,
You have to actively work
weekly,
that
monthly,
business.
something, just touching base, that type of thing.
Right.
But also making it seem natural. That I think can be the hard part too. Is like, okay, I'm going to reach out to this person. I want to touch base with them. I may not have a real reason to reach out to them other than just to say hello, but those are the things that you have to do. I'm sure you, over the years, kind of developed a method to that, where it doesn't feel like, hey, I'm just reaching out because I would like you to buy this thing, or to do this business deal, or whatever the case may be. What were some of the strategies that you use there?
Well, you just got to get in the habit of doing it and making it and doing it on a consistent basis. You just can't think about it every quarter and pull it out and start going through that. You have to have a plan. You have to have an attack. Um, I guess one of the biggest things when I think about how I approach that is one of the tips I think we all have found useful, and it's the old adage as well. Is dealing, follow the old 80/20 rule. You want to focus and concentrate on that 80% that's going to make a difference.
Mhm.
Um, and not to say you ignore that 20%, because you never know what might come out of that. But again, Time is effort and energy, and you just got to make sure you're focusing the valuable time that you have in your daily life when you're in the business world. You just got to make sure you're focusing on and what makes sense and where the results are going to come from, and don't waste your time on those that won't service or create any additional opportunities.
Rod, one of the things you mentioned was building trust, and certainly over the course of a career, you build trust with people. Sometimes you may lose trust, though. You screw something up, you get them the wrong information. You just can't help them with what they currently need, that type of thing. How do you manage those bumps in the road when it comes to a business relationship?
Well, again, if that does happen, you've got to own it. You have to be upfront and honest with that individual, and take ownership. And if you have screwed up, to put it bluntly, apologize, and like I said, own it. And that's going to carry far more weight with that
Mhm.
individual or client than as if you're just kind of brushing it aside. And you really, um, I think the thing where maybe some folks get in trouble from that respect is they don't maybe take the time to get to know that individual, get to know their business, get to know their company, get to know the industry. And if you don't do your homework and really get involved with that individual, knowing their business, I think that's where mistakes can happen. And the business owner is going to be the first to know that, and they're going to see right through you if you're speaking out of turn or don't know what you're talking about. That credibility is out the window from day one.
One of the things that I always appreciated about you, and I'm curious how you thread this needle, is you've never been afraid to be in on the joke or be the butt of the joke, as it would come to some of our small business award videos over the years, which I think is great, and it humanizes people. But there's also, I think, a concern some people have is are people going to take me seriously as a business person? Am I going to lose someone's respect if I do these things? What was your deciding factor in some of those? And I guess you had to put your trust in us that we weren't going to shine you in a bad light in some of those videos. And I think we did that okay for the most part. But I'm just curious because I think a lot of times people lose their sense of humor in the business world because they're afraid that having that sense of humor is going to make them seem like less of a serious person.
I think we really only pushed that envelope really close one time,
Dion
and
reined
we
us
yes, and we know what time that was. But um, you know, I have I've always enjoyed those opportunities to participate in the small business awards videos, and seriously, I mean, it's just all about having fun. And if you can't laugh at yourself, and I never felt that any of those opportunities that presented themselves in those videos was going to be anything detrimental to the company, the business, my what people think or thought about me. I mean, it's all in jest, it's all in fun, it's all to kind of bring everybody together, and to salute the 18 to 20 small business owners that we recognize every year. And I like to think, and I think we saw it, is I think by me stepping outside of my box, I think we had a lot of others in the community and other videos that wanted to follow that lead. And I think that was awesome because I really do. I think it made other people step outside of their box as well and say, hey, if Rod's doing it, I can do it too.
I can vouch for that. I won't show you the list of emails that I have, but there are several that have said I want to be funnier than Rod. So puts
I'm
a
not
lot of
sure.
pressure on the writing department.
I'm not sure anybody ever succeeded in that, Doug. But we'll leave that one alone. So
We'll let you retire as reigning champion there. Uh, Certainly over the course of a career, you come across just hard times in managing relationships during that. Uh, there was the housing collapse in 2008. There's COVID from just 6 years ago. How did developing strong relationships prior to those help you as things started to get back to normal or move into the new normal after those times?
You know, it's a great question. And it really goes back to a lot of things I've already covered, but it also, relationship building, again, it doesn't happen overnight. So when you do run into those bumps in the road, whether it was back in the '08, '09 housing crisis and interest rates were sky high, or again, 6 years ago when COVID hit, as long as, again, you've really laid the groundwork with those client relationships and you've went the extra mile, which I think, I always did, and that was always a high priority for me as well. And you got to be patient in building those relationships. Like I said, they're not going to happen overnight. And as long as, again, the trust is there, the credibility is there, they believe in you, you've gone the extra mile. I've always thought, again, within the segment of the business line that I performed at the bank, we always looked at my role as kind of the go-to person. And that's what clients want. They want that one singular person they can go to, whether it's at the bank or whether it's at the drugstore. It doesn't matter where it's at, but they want to to have that contact that they know, again, that they can call and for the most part get anything done.
Mhm.
And as we all know, that customer service skills and levels have deteriorated over the years, and a lot of things are getting pushed, obviously, to the 800 numbers or the automated answering services. And but we always felt that by picking up the phone, taking care of that client, and again, you might not know the answer right off the bat, but if you're upfront and honest and tell them, I will get back to you, I will find that out, and I'll get back to you by the end of the day. That was always
Mhm.
part of what we were taught and preached at throughout my banking career is um, going the extra mile, being that point person, and always making sure that you responded promptly.
So I think we'll wrap up just advice for young professionals. Certainly, we've got a pretty robust Findlay Young Professionals group here at the chamber, but really for anybody starting out their career, we're at a really weird and interesting transition point. Not just here in Findlay and locally, but just all across the country, where we have a lot of retiring business leaders and we have a lot of new people coming in, and that transition kind of can either go smoothly or there can be a lot of bumps in the road. If you think back to when you were first getting started, is there anything differently you would do that you would give advice to people just coming into either the banking industry, finance, whatever industry, but that you would advise them just lessons that you learned when you first got started?
Again, I don't think there was anything I would do differently. I'm maybe going to repeat a couple of things I said earlier, but you know, and I have had meetings and sessions with a lot of the young professionals in our community here over the years, whether it's through some of the events we've done with Rotary or through the Chamber or through United Way, whatever group it might be, where we've kind of done some collaboration with that group. I am so impressed with what I've seen out of these young professionals. I mean, they're doing the things that I recall I did, 40 years ago when I got started in this community, and they're being proactive. They're making sure they're attending those networking events, or they're taking opportunities to collaborate with us old timers, if you will. I think of an event that we had months ago with the Community Foundation, which I am heavily involved in as current vice chair and will be chair of that organization here in the near future. And we specifically targeted that young professional group to get them
Mhm.
more knowledge of what the Community Foundation does, as an example. And we had a great turnout, and they asked great questions. And I can remember when we kind of each took our turn speaking about advice or things we wanted to share with them. Um, again, I go back to the networking and not being afraid to get out and about and share who you are and what you do and what you can do for those clients. And I've always talked about, and maybe I'll sum it up with this, but um, I've always stated that remember that that you work for your client is paramount in building a relationship. At the end of the day, no amount of personal connection can substitute for your great work. So if people work hard and network in the right spaces, if you will, it's going to take them as far as they want to go. And I would, just highly support that kind of the philosophy that I have followed in my career, and hopefully impart that wisdom to those folks that will follow.
Well, Rob, we usually wrap these up by letting you promote your business and how to get in touch with you, but you're retired, so we can't do that. What are you doing these days? Obviously, the community foundation, but it's always good to have a plan for retirement to stay active. So, how are you staying active?
I'll tell you what, it's been a little over 3 months, and I have not missed a beat. People have always stated, and I did not believe this until now, until I've experienced it, that people have said you'll be more busy in your retirement than you were in your daily career. I never felt that was going to be the case, but it certainly is. I mean, it's um, again, it's just staying involved with the right nonprofit groups, organizations. The volunteerism is still a huge part of what I do daily. We are obviously trying to spend more time at Lake Erie and get up to lake a little bit more often than I had the opportunity to do so when I was working day in and day out. But just getting out and enjoying life, and just staying involved in this wonderful community we call Findlay.
Well, Rod, we appreciate you being on the program. We appreciate everything you've done for the community. Thanks for taking part today.
That's not me calling, Doug.
I forgot to turn that off. Of course. That's the way to wrap things up on the podcast. Rod, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Doug. You have a great day.